My name is Jonathan Dick. I'm a Life Scout with Boy Scout Troop 82 here in Albemarle, North Carolina, sponsored by the First Lutheran Church of Albemarle. In just a few moments, I'll be presenting to you a video of some of the veterans of Stanley County that fought for us in World War II. This video does not contain all the veterans of Stanley County, but the veterans it does contain, I feel, have a very impressive story I'd like to share with you. The story that would change the way you feel about America and the privileges we experience in everyday life. I'd also like to take this time to give the most sincere thanks to the 18 veterans that agreed to participate in this video and the scouts who helped me film and put many hours into the production of this video. Please sit back and enjoy as you watch this video of the veterans of Stanley County. This video of Faces of Freedom.
Something you can't tell about. You have to live through it.
Yes.
It was good and bad. Wouldn't do it again for all the money in the world, and I wouldn't have it took away from nothing in the world. I wouldn't do nothing. No. The battles is rough. They come and go. You live under a mortar attack for maybe 4 hours. You wonder if you're going to live through it. And when it's over with, that's why you feel okay.
Yeah.
You just wonder when the next one comes, and maybe move during the time. It's nerve-wracking, and you're scared, but I mean, you just live with it. It's a daily thing lots of times. You don't worry about it.
Scared to death. Scared to death. It's unreal. You just can't believe that what's happening is what's happening. Whenever you're being shot at, you hear the artillery going off, and it's just unbelievable what's happening around you.
One thing that I never forget was when we got pretty close to the beach, noticed it was burned up and knocked out, and submerged boats and stuff all down the beach. I'm beginning to know what war was, and when we got on the beach, we got on the road spot, there was dead animals, dead people, equipment, and everything was something we couldn't beyond imagination.
Our first day in combat, we were it was in November of 1944. We were in France, in the woods of St. Helene. We had just moved into the line to relieve the 45th Division. And it was snowing. I remember very well my captain, he was a very good singer, and we were in the woods, and then before we actually moved up to engage the enemy, he was singing, "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas," and then he sang, "I'll Be Home for Christmas," and just sort of laughing like when he said that, but that was in November. The next, we dug in that night. We slept in foxholes that night. The next morning, we got up early and started out through the woods. We were in the mountains, or the Vosges Mountains, and it was in the woods. And we started out through the woods and went down a hill. And we started the next hill. The Germans opened fire on us, and our men proceeded on up the hill. And we started up that way, and suddenly they started throwing in mortar shells. The mortar shells were hitting around us. We went back to the hill. We came down and lay down. As we were laying there, the mortar shells were hitting all around us. I felt a sting in the back of my left leg, right behind my thigh. And actually, it stung like somebody put a hot pin in it. And people around were hollering, "Medic, medic, medic," because a lot of people were getting hurt. And the medics had to come get them and take them out in stretchers. And then we counterattacked and went on up the hill, and the Germans left. We got to where they were. They had foxholes dug up there, and we thought about getting in those foxholes. We were afraid they may have some mines in those foxholes, might blow us up. So we advanced on up the hill and dug our own foxholes, and we stayed in our own foxholes that night. But that was my first day, and I got a little sting in the back of my leg, and that was the only really scratch I got during the whole war, fortunately.
This suicide plane came in one afternoon, and they always went for their aircraft carriers. And as he was making his dive, the carrier maneuvered out from under him, and he pulled that thing up. Most of the time they dive straight into the water, but he pulled that thing up just 4 or 5 feet in the water. And it was down between the ships. You couldn't shoot at it. And he was headed straight for our ship. I could see that pilot in there, could see the white of his eyes. And he decided he was going to go back and try that carrier one more time. And when he went up like that, we just walked up and down the wings with 20mm cannon, loaded him up. But he could have sunk our ship just nothing flat.
that opened. See, the Japanese, they were crazy people. Life didn't mean anything to them. You know, they'd come to their kamikaze airplanes and just hit anything, like I said, the hospital ships or the ships next to us. Whatever they could do to prepare up something, they'd do that to us. And they were also mean in the fact that they had no they were very ruthless about stuff. I guess that's why most of us guys out there in the Pacific stay pretty darn scared, because you never knew when they're going to slip up there and cut your throat or something. And they'd been on those islands a long time. They knew exactly where to go and what to do and how to get around, at night and all that stuff. But I saw a world of people killed, primarily from aircraft, either bombing or strafing, or the kamikaze planes and things of that nature, which really kind of makes you feel like it's something you'd never have to happen to you ever again. And you lost friends that meant so much to you. You lost some of those, and that was bad. That was horrible. But if something had to be done, and the Germans were trying to take over pretty well Europe and the world, and England had been fighting as long as they could, and the Japanese jumped in Pearl Harbor. So one thing we did have, we hated them, and that was good. We really hated those Japanese. And, but of course, they absolutely didn't care whether they got killed or not. They just come running in there and you shoot them in there. They just come right over. I mean, it didn't matter. They just had their life didn't mean anything to them. Any of them, I don't think. Whatever they were in, the Navy, the Air Force, the infantry, whatever. They just had no feel for living.
So you were shot down?
That's right. We got overseas just after D-Day, and we had flown 17 missions over Germany. On the 17th mission, we were shot down. We got a direct hit at an engine over Ludwigshafen. This was one of the cities right on the Rhine River, and we got a direct hit in an engine. The engine wouldn't feather because it dropped all the oil out. This was putting us in the same situation as driving an automobile with a flat tire. The engine didn't feather, it was windmilling, and it was about to shake our wing off. We got almost back to our own lines, to the Allied lines, but we crossed over a small town, and they opened up on us and just riddled us and set us on fire, so we had to get out of it.
So you were captured there?
That's right, we were captured and spent the rest of the war with the Germans.
What was the POW like?
Well, of course, no POW life could be good. It was bad. Starvation, I guess, was the worst part of it. We, most of us lost, I lost from about 100, at that time I was smaller, I probably weighed about 175 pounds when I went down, and before we got out of prison we were less than 100.
Well, we were surrounded about 10 o'clock at night, completely surrounded by the Germans, and we had no other choice except give up.
So you were captured?
We were captured.
And were you sent to a prison camp?
Eventually.
And by the way, what was the date when you were captured?
December the 19th, 43.
Okay, and can you tell me about the prison camp that you were in?
Oh yeah, it's inside a great big tall fence, had 3 or 4 buildings. Where we slept was very crude, bunks, straw tick with maybe one blanket and a heating stove. No bathroom except an open pit called a latrine, no bathroom. We only had 2 baths the full time we was captured and wore the same clothes.
What about the food that you ate there?
1 meal a day, soup and a piece of bread.
Oh, I had a fellow chief. He was a chief cook on the ship. Was a pretty close friend. I consider he was a Jewish fellow, and he lived in New York, and he had a little fleet of cafes up there, and he had points enough to have gotten out at the time we got hit, but he got killed in the explosion, and he was a likable fellow. I always thought a lot of him.
A fellow by the name of Jim O'Brien, who I just happened to run into during my prison life, that became a very good friend, and we have kept in contact throughout the years. And just this past year, I was up to see Jim. He lives up in Superior, Wisconsin. And Dale and I flew up to Minneapolis, rented a car, and went up and spent a couple days with Jim. And he was flying B-24s, which was also a heavy bomber, and they were flying out of Italy. They were shot down in the Alps mountains about the same time that we were. And we just ended up in prison and got to be good friends and have kept in contact over the years. And of course, the closest friends that I had were my own crew members. But 3 of these men were killed when we were shot down. We were flying a 9-man crew. And 3 of them were killed when we were shot down. Since then, 3 more has died. And there's 3 of us left. One down in Florida and one in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We don't get together that often, but they would, of course, be, I guess, my closest contacts that I had during the war.
Did you have any close friends in the war?
Oh yes, very close friends. You see, you would dig when you're in combat, you would have to dig a hole every night and get into a hole, and you were out in the open. I mean, we were out in the open most all the time, and so you'd usually dig a hole with maybe a couple of you. And at one time, I've been in 3 of us been in a foxhole at the same time, and you get to know these people real well. I know this one fellow, Thomas Joyner from Bee Branch, Arkansas. He and I were almost always together because he and I would operate the radio most of the time. And he would carry it a while, and I would carry it a while. Somebody else would carry it, but we were the main radio operators. And I knew him real well. I haven't seen him since the war, but I remember him so well. He was just a young boy, most of us were 18 years old. And he had just gotten drafted and sent over there and joined our outfit. I believe he came over after the war started, after we got overseas, rather. And but I knew him real well, and I knew a fellow Sergeant Joe Cosby. He now lives in Oregon. Joe Cosby was a BAR man. That means Browning Automatic Rifle man, and that's what he used, his Browning Automatic Rifle. I knew him real well, and we went all the way through the war together, and even after that, we were transferred after the war was over to the MPs, and he and I went to the MPs together. I knew a lot of them, and I've seen a few since that time, but we had a lot of close friends, and you know each other real well when you're staying in the same foxhole and in the same outfit together.
Something I keep up with when I'm in Stone Mountain, Georgia, Roy King. We see him 2 or 3 times a year. We go to his children's weddings, and they come to our children's weddings, and we see him 2 or 3 times a year. He was an interior decorator. He's retired now, 2 or 3 years older than me. And then I see and talk with Ralph Kettner. Ralph was one of the organizers for Food Lines, Food Town it was then, in Salisbury. I didn't realize it until I met with him back in February, I believe it was, at Piper College, that he and I went in the same day, and with the exception of part of our basic training and overseas duty, we were together the whole time, came back the same ship, discharged the same night, and served probably the same number of hours. And then there was Joe T. Landers. He was from Anniston, Alabama. Joe was in the Guards and MPs with us, and he came back, and he was with the FBI until his retirement and then his death about 2 years ago. And then there was L.D. Kane. Kane was an Almond boy. He's former highway patrolman, state highway patrolman, chief of police, city of Almond, and former postmaster. But he was our provost marshal and company commander. And I remember Kane very well, especially the day the war ended. He had a brother, he lost a brother over there. And he didn't want to go around any of the prisoners that we were guarding because he said they killed my brother, and he was afraid what he might do if he was near them. So we guarded him, but as provost marshal, he didn't come near him. And then there was a little fellow named Chesley Odom. I believe Chesley was from Michigan. He was lonesome like me, but I'd bring him home when we were in Camp Sutton, and he'd come home on weekends and spend the night with me. But those are the ones that I remember the best, I guess.
While we were there, I'm going to answer another question that you might have later. One of the things that happened there in Boggan was something that I feel was most impressive to me. And General Eisenhower and General Patton and Mr. Churchill and General Montgomery and General Elmore Bradley came through, and we stood in formation out in this big field outside of Boggan. And they all came through the ranks and shook hands with us, and each one asked us a question or two and shook our hands and wished us well on our next leg of our journey into France. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was one of the most impressive things that I had to happen.
Well, D-Day was the biggest whenever they invaded that in France, which was a big experience for me and everybody else. See all the people killed and all the ships, planes, and I looked out and I couldn't figure out how in the world anybody could make the plans to get all those ships, men, and planes working together. And then seeing the men killed. And I remember one ship had 28 men aboard, and German bombed Eudy. And when it cleared, there wasn't nothing left.
I can't say this. Only experience I could ever say that it was really exciting to me. We was in London, England, one night. They bombed London. They bombed it was, that's all I'd say, within, wasn't as close as 100 yards up at it. But when you have a rage, you lay right down on your stomach. Just like we laid down on the stomach for some hours, maybe quite a few little hours. I don't think the bombing was over.
That ship was 300-some feet. It's not a very large ship. Not a very large ship. It's only, say, approximately less than distance of a football field.
Oh, so you didn't fly any planes off of it?
Sorry?
You didn't fly any planes off of it?
No. This is a very small ship. In fact, I have seen this ship in rough water. I have actually seen, from standing back in the back, I've actually seen this ship bend like this, back and forth. They have been known to break in two. See, it's a small ship. It's not like a battle wagon or a cruiser or something like that. In fact, the walls are only about that thick in it. So it wasn't a very large ship.
Were you in any storms?
Yes, we hit in the Pacific. They call them typhoons instead of hurricanes. Here we call them hurricanes. In the Pacific, we call them typhoons. I know we were in Guam, and we got information that there was one coming in, and that we had better get out. which we did. We went outside and just rode the outside of them. Because these things were really terrific. Our Friday was. They were terrific. A small ship like that, it's a possibility that it could sink it.
Oh, so the waves were pretty high on the water.
Mm-hmm. I went very many a night and just strapped myself in. Just strapped myself in, you know. Not worried about it.
Then later, we were heading B-29 airplanes and went up to Seattle to Boyd's plant where they make the 29s. And we had 6 weeks of special training there, familiarization with the 29s. Came back to Maxwell Field and did work for us on the 29s. When we received them, then they were ready for combat duty. The gun turrets were in place and that sort of thing, and we were using the airplanes for pilot training. So many things had to be accomplished with the airplanes to make them more suitable for just pilot training. For example, disconnecting gun turrets. There was no point in gun turrets being hooked up, you know, ready to fire for pilot training. And an unusual experience that I had in one of these airplanes, one night, so then we would work rotating shifts. The base was open around the clock, and I was working second shift on occasion shortly after we got these airplanes. And one night I was disconnecting gun turrets back in the waist gunner's position, and had the batteries disconnected. We have a master disconnect in the airplanes. Of course, I had that disconnected so that there was no electricity back there. I was back there disconnecting a gun turret. And of course, airplanes are metal. There are hydraulic lines running throughout the airplane. And as I was disconnecting this gun turret, one of the radio people decided that he wanted to listen to some music. So he comes in and turns the master switch on, and I'm back there with this wrench, and it hits the side of the airplane and burns my wedding band in two.
We went overseas in April of 1943 and landed in Liverpool, England, and from there we did our training up in Wales, in North Wales, and did under General Patton at that time. And fortunately we had a good leader and many good leaders, and we went into Europe in France on Omaha Beach about the 16th day of June after D-Day. D-Day was the 6th of June, and we relieved the 101st Airborne. And I was a private then, of course, and we actually started our attack on July the 4th, 1944, and we had many casualties during that time. We lost our company commander within an hour after we started fighting. We lost several platoon leaders. I lost several in our spot. I was just a rifleman in the area there. And luckily, I didn't get hit. We went on and fought on through the hedgerows. And we have pictures in the books here about the different areas that we were. And from there, I went on and got to be a squad leader, sergeant squad leader. And then we went out to went in the St. Malo area and captured this colonel, which this book tells about something about that situation there. And then we went down on the Loire River, and what we call the Iron R platoon of our regiment helped capture 20,000 Germans that were coming in from the southern France, that were retreating from southern France there. And so everything went very smooth through there. We had no problems. And then we went to Luxembourg and stayed there in Luxembourg for about, this was getting on into the fall of the year.
And we stayed there up on the Siegfried line, right across from the German border. Then we got relieved by the 4th Division, and here's something a little ironical. There was this person here from Baden that I didn't realize was anywhere near me. But so happened I had gotten to be an acting platoon leader at that time, and we were relieved by the 4th Division. And so happened our platoon had been on an outpost, and we got relieved and came on back, and I found out later that he went out on that same outpost, Mr. Victor Devereaux. He was a lieutenant then, and he was captured. And had we been there 2 or 3 days before that, I would have been in his place, so I feel pretty fortunate I didn't get captured that time. Anyway, went on into Germany in the Hürtgen Forest and had some action there, and then we came back into the Bulge, and that's where I got the battlefield commission during the Battle of the Bulge, and about 5 days after my commission, I was injured. Got hit with the shrapnel and had to go back for a rest trial. I didn't get hurt bad. I got some shrapnel through my leg, but it didn't bother me too much at all. And anyway, we came back, and from there we went on to across the Rhine, and went on started what we call a ragtag circus. We didn't have any owned vehicles ourselves, so we got some of the Germans as we captured them. We'd use their vehicles, and we moved along. In fact, we were in head of the armored division, which normally is the one that stays all in head of everybody when you're moving through things like that. But anyway, we came on, and as that little article I had there, we crossed the Elbe River, as I told you, in 13 landing craft on the 13th day of April at 1300 hours, which is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Unfortunately, we didn't have anybody that got hurt at that time. We didn't even have a shot fired at us, I don't guess. So we got on over to cross there about 4 or 5 miles, and then everything did break loose. And about 3 or 4 days, I got hit again with a bullet, and that ended my fighting career. But it was a very, very good experience. It's an experience that I would never, of course, want to go through again, and wouldn't have gone through it probably had I known the things that we'd run into. But we did have a lot of met a lot of good friends, and had a lot of just experiences that be unbelievable to describe, of course. And I was fortunate enough to get awarded the Silver Star for some action there in the Battle of the Bulge, and I got the Bronze Star later. The Purple Heart with a cluster is what this represents right here. I was hit, as I say, twice, once in the Battle of the Bulge, and once nearly within 3 or 4 hours after just before we finished fighting. And these are the divisions I was with, the 63rd Infantry, the 83rd, and I came home with the 26th, the Yankee Division, they call it, the WWII Division. And we had many, many experiences. In fact, there was one person here from Albemarle that we went in together. We went to the 63rd, the 1st Division there. We were in the companies joining each other, infantry companies, and he got transferred to Kentucky when I went up to the 83rd, and we were together through the whole war. Luckily, he didn't get injured except a small wound, very, very, very slight. Didn't have to even go back. But during the Bulge, we did get cut off from the rest of the unit, and we were cut off for about 2 days. And luckily, we didn't have anybody, about 3 or 4 casualties. We did capture several Germans. We were listed as missing for about 2 days, but we were able to get back home and had no problems there. But for the people coming along in the distant future here, it was an experience that we could not ever express, but it was one that we would not be without, because it showed the American people in the world that we looked like we were way back as far as having any experience in learning how to fight. We showed them that we could come around and win a war, and then after the war, we were able to give the aid to the different, even though there were some of our enemies, we were able to give aid to the world populace to get them back on their feet. And for the future, I hope that this war, of course, we've had wars since the Second War, the Korean engagement in the Vietnam War, but I hope that we will be able to live in peace and not have problems that we have had in the past, and there won't be anybody that will come out and try to take over the country and let everybody live in peace and have a wonderful life for the near future. And I appreciate, Michael, your letting me present this to you, and if you have any questions, I certainly would let you ask me those now, okay?
Did you have to fight Christmas Day?
Yeah, that was a bad day. I've seen a program or two on television since this happened, but the sky cleared on Christmas morning. And the television says it was a day or two different. I don't know where they're wrong or where I'm wrong, but I think it's Christmas morning. Sky was clear and all the P-47s and stuff was out.
How about
So we'd been under a cloud and couldn't drop supplies in there, and we was in a mess. And the sky cleared and all the P-47s was out and dog fight and stuff, and then one for the day or two we was on the move.
Yeah, yeah.
War is no good for anybody. You don't win wars. I don't think war is a very unnecessary part of humanity. All the wars we've ever fought, we've never gained anything. This World War II, we fought that war. We thought we was doing great for humanity and everything was going to be wonderful after the war. We've not accomplished a thing. We've spent, the taxpayers has paid money to build Germany, to build Japan, every country we ever tore up, we paid to rebuild it. All we did was kill humanity, women and children, and I don't think this is it. I don't think there should be such a thing as war.
War is awful, and that I would wish that nobody would have to experience it. There's a lot of casualties and death, and you have to live miserably. We had to live outdoors in the cold weather, and no place at night they sleep on the ground or in the ground. Sometimes we will be in the villages where you can get inside of a building, but of course there's no heat and no lights. But it's just a miserable feeling. You live miserably all the time, and you're subject to getting killed or hurt or captured any time. And it's just war is terrible. War is horrible, and I wish that nobody would ever have to experience it.
Thank you.
I'm afraid if we have another one, it won't be like any one we've ever had. It'll be a nuclear war, and the things we went through, I don't think would ever happen again. It'll be about like the atom bomb, and could possibly just wipe out the whole universe as we know it all at once. There wouldn't be no long drawn out 3 or 4 or 5 years, I don't think. It'd be over in short order. And we need to stay prepared. We need to be ready.
Do you think that might have been answered when I say that I hope that we would never have to go through anything like that again? It's something that I wouldn't want to see any young people go through. I'm 70 years old now. I wouldn't want to go through it again. I don't want my kids or your kids or anyone else going through it.
Well, we were fighting for survival, but it was certainly a unified effort. Everybody, civilians and all, were involved in World War II, and it was not a questionable thing then. Everybody was dedicated, and everybody did their part, and that's the only reason that we won the war, is because of the effort on everybody's part. It was not a thing like Vietnam where we were divided. Some thought we should be there and some thought we shouldn't. everybody was dedicated to the effort during World War II.
The only thing I know of, I would like to tell the young men of America that it's a great experience to go and to help the country. You know, a lot of people don't think about it that way, but it's a job that has to be done. And I would advise any young man to do a hitch in the service, no matter what branch of the service. But in any branch of the service, a young man ought to go and do a hitch in the service. He'll learn a lot. I mean, a lot.
I think President Truman was wise in his decision. Many people possibly think that maybe it wasn't so. At least today they think that. But in my opinion, the war would have had many, many more American casualties had we not gone ahead and done what we did in dropping the atomic bomb on Japan there, of course. But it's an experience that I hope that none of you folks will ever have to go through with, and it's one that I wouldn't have wanted to, but after I did, of course, I would take nothing for the experience, and I was able to come through as well as I did.